And then he begins to ask a question that I believe would have brought a twinkle to the eye and a smile to the face of these men standing before a furious, rage-filled king. He said, "And who is the God that shall deliver you out of my hands?" He said, "Let me ask you a question. You must have missed it the first time. I'm not sure what was happening, but you've always been good to me in the past. So I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to let the music play one more time, and you're going to bow down and worship me like everybody else does. And here's the consequences. If you do, everything's going to be well for you right now. But if you don't, I'm going to throw you into the middle of this fire in the presence of everybody that's watching." Rage filled his face. Nobody goes against the most powerful military ruler of this time in history. Nobody does. And let me ask you another question, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands? And if we were watching the movie of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all of a sudden the thought bubble would begin to pop up on the screen. And all of a sudden they would go back to the things that they had read in the scrolls and the things their parents had told them. They said, "Let me tell you about the God who told Noah to build a boat and preserved the people that feared God in the middle of a flood that flooded the entire planet." He said, "That's the God that will deliver me." Let me tell you about the God that spoke to Abraham and said, "I don't care how old you are, I'm going to make you a great nation." And God always kept his promise, every single one. That's the God who will deliver me. They said, "Let me tell you about the God that spoke to Moses and said, 'You're going to lead my people.'" And they made it to the Red Sea and thought there was no way through, but all of a sudden the God of miracles parted the water so they walked through on dry ground. Who is the God? That's my God. That's the one that I serve. He said, "Who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands?" And they said, "I know about the God of Joshua that said you don't have to take out a sword or a shield. All you have to do is shout one good time and I'll push the walls over. That's the God that I serve." They said, "Let me tell you about the God of Samson, the God that allowed him to stand there and kill more Philistines in his death than he did in his life. How does that happen? The power of God. That's the God I'm talking about." He said, "Let me tell you about the God of David that grabbed a little stone and a slingshot one day and tossed a rock in the face of a giant. And the giant didn't fall backwards like you would if you got hit in the head. He fell forwards because God was standing behind him and said, 'Lay down.'" That's the God that I'm talking about. Who is the God that will deliver you out of my hand? Listen, we got a culture, we've got a government asking those same types of questions these days. Who is the God that's going to pay your bills if you don't do what we want you to do? Who is the God who's going to heal you if you don't have what we want you to have? Who is the God that's going to heal your marriage? Who is the God that's going to deliver you? Who is the God? And we say, "I know. He's the one in this book I've been reading about. He's the one who changed my life. I've seen him do it before. I'll watch him do it again. That's my God."